Content warning. This episode contains discussions of mental health struggles and mentions of suicide. Welcome, everybody back to another episode of the Trans Plan, your go-to podcast for transgender history. As always, I'm your host, Mari. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you all here with me today on this lovely Sunday. Sorry that this episode is a little bit later released. It was supposed to be released on Sunday. You all basically get on Monday, primarily because it's 10:30 right now as I'm recording this episode, and I don't want to keep y'all up. We got work tomorrow. So do I. So I don't want to release this episode literally when y'all go to sleep. So it'll be released to y'all Monday morning. This was supposed to be earlier. But yay to school, you know what I'm saying? Get my master's degree. And I had to write a paper. And the way my ADHD set up, it took longer than I anticipated. So happy it's over. I already had the script ready. It's just been a crazy week for me, so I haven't been able to record earlier than I wanted to for this. But I'm just happy that I can get this episode still released to y'all. And sent out, you know what I'm saying, so that y'all can hear it. It might be better for y'all to listen to it on a Monday, so at least the first portion of your day and or the ride home is actually somewhat ish fun, I will say. Let's see. Any updates? I don't think I have any, to be completely honest with y'all. One thing I do want to share is that I will be joining the live streaming community very soon. I'm trying to debate kind of what I want the content to be, whether I want to be you all kind of just, seeing me doing my research process and kind of what that looks like, or being very trans news, trans articles, and things that I look into as it relates to my research. If I want to have y'all involved in that, I don't really know the structure just yet. I'm kind of playing with different ideas in my brain, but I do want to utilize, like I said, kind of get more live streaming, being more involved with you all who are active listeners of the podcast. Just like I said, y'all can have another platform to literally chat with me, especially if you're literally all around the world. So think about that. And y'all might be laughing because you're this man don't even do his podcast episodes all the time. It's not because I don't want to. It's just a lot of things that go on in the city of Atlanta that conflicts a lot with me trying to do record my episodes in a good time so I can actually sit down and write the episode scripts and do everything. So I appreciate y'all for your patience, and also still riding the wave of listening to the episode. So I think that's the only update for now. If anything else comes to mind, I will say it towards the end of the episode, but I'm not gonna keep you all much longer. So as I always like to do, again, to the introduction, and I have a very intriguing podcast episode today that I literally just read about not too long ago. So I was excited to do more research on this, excited to write this podcast script today and talk to you all about this very particular person that I will be going more in depth with momentarily. But as always, I have to do my introduction. So I want to first start off by welcoming all of the brand new podcast listeners. If this is your, my apologies, very first episode of the podcast, welcome. Sometimes I'll ramble at the beginning. Usually it's a little bit more informative. I try to give an update or something about my life or something that's going on that I think would be very beneficial to everybody on the podcast that's listening. This week is just not one of those weeks. So the beginning is a little bit more rambling, but welcome. If you're a new listener here, I just want to let you know that this podcast is not just about history, but serves as a platform for education to provide you with some valuable insights into the issues and stories faced by the transgender community. My goal is really to aim to inspire understanding, promote inclusivity, and spark conversations about the community with the expert knowledge and resources to provide you with some further learning. Um, each episode of our podcast is intentionally designed to be concise yet comprehensive. The duration has now varied, so I'm not going to give a good duration, but like I said, it gives you something to start with, and like you can learn more at your own time. That's the whole purpose of this podcast. So, welcome to all of the brand new listeners. I hope that you love the episode. Hopefully, you like, subscribe, and follow on whatever streaming platform that you're currently listening on right now. To my existing and returning listeners, the loyal fans of the podcast, thank you so much, as I always love to say, for supporting the podcast. I know it has been a ride with all of us here. If you've been here from the very beginning, and or like you said, if you kind of like been here on a decent amount of years now, it has been a journey. But like I said, without you, this podcast would not be my baby. It would not be my bread. Well, I don't make money from this, but my bread and butter. Shout out, if you know some ad people, tell them to reach out to me. But yeah, like I really enjoy doing this, and it makes me happy that I can like actually have this platform to just share information that I find with the research that I do for school. So it means a lot. I greatly appreciate you all for continuing to support. And like I said, I have some gifts that I want to give away very, very soon. I'm trying to get all logistics of that done. And like I said, maybe take this more to a live streaming type of thing too as well. So stay tuned for that. So thank you all so much for all of my listeners, no matter if you're new or returning to the podcast. All right, let's dive right into today's episode. Today we'll be talking about a story that really challenges traditional gender boundaries and highlights the complexities of identity during one of the most, let me get my Google Translate out here, tumultuous, because I say it wrong. I don't say it wrong. I just my dialect is terrible. So I just like to make sure I have my Google Translate ready for things that have bigger syllables. Tumultuous eras in American history, the American Civil War. Now, my focus really is going to be on a trans man by the name of Albert Cashier, uh, who defied societal norms and made significant contributions to the Union Army. So we're going to talk about his life. We're going to analyze aspects of identity, gender. Like I said, look more into his historical narrative that has really been obscured throughout, like I said, our American history books. Now, um, as we all know, of course, and this is not like really a disclaimer per se. I just want to kind of like make note of this, is that as we continue on with modern terminology to discuss historical figures, it's important to remember that the language and understanding of gender identity has evolved significantly. Um, and that is something that I feel as though, like, when we look at Albert's story, a lot of times, like I said, when you look at it from different, if you're reading like different articles or books, et cetera, people may feel as though Albert's story isn't considered to be part of trans history, but really just more of American Civil War history, which is fine. However, if you, like I said, look at the background and early life of Albert, and I'll talk about this, like I said, in like a very brief background and early life of him, that as a trans man, his story is still a significant part of trans history. So I just want to make that note. Okay, so here we go. Albert Cashier was born Janine Irene Hodgers on Christmas Day back in 1843 in Cloggerhead, Ireland. His early life was really shrouded, in mystery and ambiguity, characterized by the really conflicting accounts from the articles that I read that makes it very difficult to really put precise details as it relates to his background. It is believed, though, that Albert's stepfather had dressed him as a boy to secure work due to the unfortunate death of his mother, who had dementia. It's reported that his mother had passed away back around 1862. And I really think that Albert going through the phase of having to dress as a boy to secure work set the stage for his lifelong journey of identity exploration, right? With this initiation that began, he actually ended up migrating over to the US, where he eventually ended up settling in Illinois. And this act of independence would actually set the stage for his enlistment in 1862 um, in the 95th Illinois Infantry during the American Civil War, where he presented himself now as Albert DJ Cashier. Now, upon enlisting, Cashier really actually conducted himself as any other soldier, right? They say his military service was marked by bravery and determination. So when he enlisted at the age of 18, he was assigned to Company G, where really his stature, he was about like 5'3". He weighed only 110 pounds. So think about like how small that is, combined with his understated demeanor really allow him to navigate military life somewhat really discreetly. Now, the laxity surrounding the physical examination process during the Civil War allowed many women to enlist successfully, rendering the act of what we know as passing, right? And I'll talk about passing a little bit later on. But as a soldier, a feasible endeavor really for many at this time. Um, from what I read, the examination protocols were really primarily focused on superficial physical characteristics rather than the kind of like deeper intricacies of an identity. So interestingly, like I said, I looked at, if I say words wrong the first time, it's not because I don't know how to say it, it's because it's been a long day. Y'all, I've been reading papers and writing and typing for like the past 12 hours. So bear with me. But interestingly, approximately 400 women had fought on the Union side, successfully actually disguising themselves in male attire. So this really raises, in my opinion, the intriguing questions that we get about societal perceptions of gender as it relates to identity, and really the um, arbitrariness embedded within these definitions, right? So when women dressed as men effectively navigated the complexities of wartime experiences and gender norms, Albert Cashier's story and even others utilized a blend of the physical disguise and the behavioral mimicking, such as right adopting a masculine mannerism and engaging in the traditional male activities to maintain their identities in the army. So, as you continue on with Albert's story, of course, that's just something I want to talk about. But throughout the Civil War, he participated in approximately 40 battles, including the pivotal engagements such as let me make sure I'm saying this right for all of my historians out there. Like I said, I have Google Translate on deck, y'all. I'm not lying. Siege of Vicksburg, in the Red River Campaign. So Albert's exposure to the harsh realities of war also took a toll on his health, as you could guess, right? So he actually ended up facing some chronic health issues, um, including illnesses that necessitated for hospitalization, but yet he still managed to really evade detection of his true identity throughout this entire process. Now, before I continue on as it relates to Albert's post-war life, I want to talk about passing, and especially back in as I mentioned before, y'all, it's like the 1800s, mid 1800s. The term of passing, for those who do not know, if like you're very brand new to some of these terminologies, refers to the act of an individual participating and presenting themselves as a member of a different gender. And this can also come into racial identity as well. Obviously, if you've seen Sinners, this is a great example of that. But Cashier was among those who really navigated this terminology and skillfully adopting the male identities amidst the constraints of his historical context, right? So the strict expectations surrounding gender roles at the time meant that one could easily go unnoticed in terms of their biological sex, quote unquote, that they adhere to societal norms for masculinity. So, for instance, right, women often become what is the word I'm looking for? What is the word I'm looking for? Uh, what is the word I'm looking for? Amenorrheic, right? During services, resulting really in the absence of menstruation. Um, you know what I'm saying? So as you think about that particular sentence that I said, moreover, cashiers distinctive physical traits alongside the societal assumptions about the appearance of men really allow him to blend seamlessly into his surroundings. So his experiences highlight the fluidity of gender expression and identity, especially within the context of war, basically, right? And that's just something I kind of like wanted to talk about because I think a lot of people have thoughts about, like you said, how could Albert pass back in like the mid 1800s? Now, there are stories, not just Albert's story, but just about like women, period, who served in the war and etc. Kind of having the same experience as Albert, right? Not identifying as a trans man, but um, just like I said, being an androgynous woman within the war in order to fight to serve and like I said, not make a living, but like I said, just really put in the effort to be in a space where they do something that either that they love, possibly give out of a situation, et cetera, et cetera. To continue, Albert Cashier's identity did not dissolve after the war, which is why, like I said, I think his story is very important as we talk about trans history, not just Civil War history, but instead he chose to continue living as a man in civilian life, employing the skills that he had developed during his service, like farm work, as one of those options. Right now, this choice aligns with several, like I said, scholarly interpretation of motivations behind Cashier's persistent identity. Really, the active rebellion against gender norms, um, a strategy really to escape societal oppression, or even really a manifestation of deeper seated feelings about his identity that resonated with today's understanding, like I said, of the transgender experience. So in many ways, as I talk about Cashier's story, um, this creates, like I said, more discourse around our community, right? And the struggle against like societal norms versus the pursuit of authenticity, like I said, as it relates back into this particular time frame. So um the intricate tapestry of Cashier's life, mental health plays another significant role in that. So, from multiple reports that I've read, they suggest that he may have experienced PTSD, which is a very common thing for those who usually um, leave the army, not just the army, but just leave and exit military service in general. um, and the impact of combat alongside the necessity to constantly navigate complex social landscapes as both a soldier and as a man may also have contributed to his post-war difficulties. So, they say that the reactions to, um, I don't want to say this, woman bodied soldiers, and I'm not saying that Cashier is a part of that, but like I said, when we think about just thinking about the context of a trans man, just period too. This is like a mixed thing, right? Where many were supportive of his comrades, um, defending him against the accusations of fraud when his identity was questioned, and others viewed that female soldiers um, as aberrations, right? So this duality that reflects a societal struggle to understand gender variance during a time was characterized by those rigid norms. So what I want like us to think about as it relates to that is like people post war life um had difficulties. Like I said, female soldiers kind of being in the war during this time was, I'm not gonna say not recommended, but not recommended when we think about like from a societal stance. So it does create a little bit of mixed reactions of those who will be very supportive just because it's kind of like a family like a family bond, right? When you get into military service, where no matter who you are, as long as you're at the forefront with what they say is like your quote unquote brothers, is like a common term that you'll hear. The same rules should apply for female soldiers too, as well, right? And like I said, how they look at female soldiers as aberrations is just another thing to it as well. So it's kind of like I said, just thinking about back in the mid 1900, I mean 1900, the mid 1800s, and kind of like looking at the complexities of that, and just going through that type of struggle really on a consistent daily basis. So as Albert aged, um, his life unfortunately took a tragic turn. In 1913, due to dementia, he was moved to a state hospital where his biological sex as Janine Hodgers was uncovered. And this revelation accumulated in the forceful imposition of a dress, unfortunately, and what really created a complete uh, degradation of the identity that he had fought so tirelessly to actually secure. Albert unfortunately passed away on October 10th in 1915. And like I said, which was a bittersweet accumulation of a life spent courageously navigating the intersections of gender identity and war. And Cashier's burial was in full military form, luckily. And this really serves, I think, as a metaphor for his unwavering commitment to live authentically in a world that often actively sought to obscure um, and or erased that identity that he had fought for. So really the story of Albert Cashier's life encapsulates, I'm sorry, well, both, honestly. Vital discussions about gender identity, representation, and historical narratives that often go um, marginalized, right? And by really acknowledging and exploring such accounts, we are able to really contribute to a deeper understanding of the intricate lives led by individuals like Cashier. So I want us to continue to just think about the inclusivity of historical narratives. Now, like I said, if you're like studying feminist studies or LGBTQ plus studies, this isn't new to you. But if you don't do this on a regular basis, continue to, just like I said, amplify stories that if you read, if you research on it, it challenges societal constructs and celebrates the resilience um, of individuals who just like to be who they are. Um, but with that, excuse me, um, that's all I really have on Albert Cashier. It was a very beautiful story. Like I said, from the articles that I read, I do put the citations of where I read all my research in my episode bios now. So if you want to look at exactly what I've read, you can absolutely go there. Like I said, just do a simple Google search and learn more about Albert, and it'll give you a lot longer story. Like I said, for me, I try to condense this down. So they're not pieces that I'm missing per se. It's just some things I leave out so that you all can read it. So just take your time to like look more into Albert's story. Is a very beautiful story. Um, and like I said, unfortunately, a very sad ending to the story as well. With that, if you want to follow me, Mari the host, you can follow me at mariiwrld. That's MAR3ISWRLD. If you want to follow the podcast, you can follow us at the Trans Lesson Plan on Instagram and Twitter. No, I don't have a TikTok. May consider it, but haven't really been a big fan of it. But with that, I think that's all I have for you all today. I hope you have a great start to the week. I hope you have a strong start to the week, a strong ending to the week as well. I know y'all about to get paid, but unfortunately, the bills got to get paid too this week. So I hope less stress. Like I said, we're gonna try to get through. Hopefully a recession, even though we in it right now. But I really just want to send my love to all of you. I know it's been a very hard time recently, and we're still trying to figure out ways to navigate. Which is kind of like I said, why I want to possibly do the live stream of like the news and the articles that I read to kind of just bring more joy in some sort of way or fashion. So like I said, just keep an eye out for that. Um, but like I said, just sending some love and support to you all. Um, and I will be here on Sunday for a brand new episode of the Trans Lesson Plan. But until then, I hope you all have a great, like I said, rest of your week. And I'll see you next time. Peace.